Good morning. Welcome to Special Cabinet on Tuesday the 17th of November. Are there any apologies? No? None? Order of business?
As published, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Thank you. And we go on now to item 4, 2015-16 Quarter 2 performance reports.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the Quarter 2 report, as usually we set out the key priority areas, the key approaches we're taking in terms of preventative intervention and co-production, etc., the priority communities, and then we report under each of the 5 headings in the Single Midlothian Plan. And there's quite a lot of detail set out in the report for you there, and I'll just pick up on perhaps a couple of highlights which might then also come out in the individual reports for the different directorates. In terms of health and care, I mean, as you're well aware of the progress being made through the IJB. I think that there's very significant challenges ahead in terms of finance, in terms of moving forward in integration. But the general view is that integration is progressing well in Midlothian, and the better we strengthen that partnership between health and the council, the more likely we are to overcome some of the long-term strategic challenges we face in terms of older people, in terms of substance misuse and some of the other key areas. In terms of community safety, I think I'd touch on the challenge project set out there about diversionary activities and leadership development for young people, and that is work we're doing in the context of the Army Community Covenant. In relation to getting it right for every Midlothian child, clearly the early years work continues to be of great importance. I think the significant work being done there, the Family Learning Centre approach is a key part of that, and I hope members are reassured by the positive work ongoing in that area. Also, in terms of raising attainment and achievement, this is a big focus for us. You'll be very aware of the efforts in education to really move that forward. Customer services, the contact centre, the launch of the Mayfield Customer Hub took place in Quarter 2. We also reflect there on the bibliotherapy project, which has been very significant. And of course, Quarter 2 also saw the launch of Borders Rail. The launch itself, I think, was a great success. I think that it's also interesting to reflect that the journey figures in the opening month or so suggest an annual usage far in excess of what was set out in the business case for the railway. Now, we're yet to see some of the details of that in terms of, where the increased patronage is, which stations, which journeys, and we'll be getting that from ScotRail in the forthcoming period. The key issue for us now, of course, is about maximising the economic benefits. The railway serves some of our more deprived communities in Midlothian. We absolutely need to ensure that we are getting the maximum economic benefits in terms of inward investment, in terms of tourism visits, as well as the better access to employment and training opportunities which the railway brings. In terms of the sustainable growth and housing section of the report, I just touch on the waste aspect. Very significant developments in the second quarter. We had the planning permission approved for the residual waste plant. This really puts us at the forefront of dealing with residual waste in Scotland. That's really important work, joint with Edinburgh, of course. And the food waste plant will be beginning to accept food waste from Edinburgh City Council in November, and of course our own food waste collection is starting off as well. In terms of the housing strategy, I'd simply touch on the environmental project at McNeill Terrace. Again, more details of this might come forward in the reports to follow. I just think there's been some very important, significant work done there, and it seems that has been broadly well received. The challenges ahead, I mean, again, these are, I think, broadly very familiar to you. None of this is new. You know, our ambition is very high in terms of moving forward on the key areas of health and social care integration, getting right for every child, positive destinations, economic attainment, etc. The financial challenge relates to all of that. The financial strategy last came before the Council on the 22nd of September. It shows our best estimate of the position leading up to 2020-21 and the scale of savings needed in that period, we think in the region of 23 million. Things for the short term will come clear after the Chancellor's autumn statement and then the Scottish Government's response to that in terms of 2016-17 budget. We're anticipating that on the 17th of December. I think what's really important is that, given our focus as a council on early intervention, on preventing some of the significant issues we see in our communities that result from the lack of previous early intervention, it's very important that the budget decisions we take are seen in that context. And my view that I've stated before is what we see elsewhere in the UK and perhaps elsewhere in Scotland as well, is that because the budget pressures are so extreme that some of the funding for early intervention prevention, precisely the things we need to invest in, is cut back, and we need to try and avoid that as we go through our own very, very significant budget challenges in the weeks and months ahead. The PI summary and the actions are set out through to pages 45, and I'm happy to take questions in any aspect of this. I'm sure my colleagues will help me out in some of the specifics.
Thank you very much. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or matters they wish to raise? Okay, when I was reading through it, I thought there was lots of good things that we can build on and lots of things that were really positive that are now proven their worth. All the preventative work that's been going on, I'm especially familiar with the preventative work that was going on with both Mary and Evelyn's directorate, and I'm really impressed, and I hope that that can continue through, so that not only will we make savings just now, but better futures for our residents. Thank you.
I just wanted to pick up on that point that Kath was just making there. It's quite clear that the preventive, certainly financial measures and being prudent will certainly serve as well as we go into an even more difficult economic period. And the other thing I wanted to pick up was some of the indicators on housing, particularly the ones around page 64, reducing antisocial behaviour. That was one of the points that was picked up quite a lot in the housing survey that residents were concerned about. So it's good to see that the indicators there are so positive. And it was really interesting last week at my first Community Safety Board meeting how much work has been done across Midlothian with partners. And it was really, really good to sit on that board and get involved, and hopefully maybe our opposition members can take part in that at some point as well. But other than that, all really, really positive, particularly in the commercial operations, but to see all the positive indicators there as well. So it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we can move on to item 4B, Health and Social Care, Customer and Housing Services.
Thanks, Chair. In terms of reflecting on quarter 2, in terms of progress, New Byres Crescent was finally vacated during that quarter, which members are aware in terms of the incident and the management to that crisis situation, which has certainly been challenging both for the staff involved as well as not detracting from the impact it's had on the households who were directly affected. But all 64 households have been relocated away from that site, and it's now in preparation with colleagues at Building Services for demolition to take place, with utility companies currently in there stripping out for the year end for that to allow to go forward, and then the subsequent rebuild of the site. In terms of customer services, as has been referenced earlier, the Hub project was launched in Mayfield, and we're getting some good early results from that in terms of people engaging with the services and getting outcomes which are successful for their particular circumstances locally. And again, we'll take the learning from that and report back in due course. The pilot was for a 12-month period, and then where we can roll that out across the rest of public access points, primarily the libraries within communities for accessing council services. The bibliotherapy project's also been referenced earlier, and that's been well received and indeed has had the profile during the course of the Edinburgh Festival when it featured on the BBC as being an innovative project, and indeed has attracted additional funding so that we can extend that across other areas of Midlothian. It's predominantly located in Pennycook Library, but we are currently extending that beyond that area. In terms of community safety, whilst Councillor Parry certainly indicated our successes, I would caution that in the current quarter, which is yet to be reported, there is an increase across antisocial behaviour and vandalism. And that's from a 5-year downward trend, and certainly we anticipate that that is a consequence of increasing difficulties relative to welfare reform, which have taken time to feed through, because the trend has been against that when we'd anticipated that that would show much earlier than it is. And indeed there's an increase in housebreaking across the county due to displacement of activities by the neighbouring city. In terms of other aspects positively with progress, we referenced the Challenge project. This has worked in conjunction with the Army through the Community Covenant, and gives us the opportunity for opportunities for young people to be taken off the streets in terms of giving them a challenge relative to team building scenarios and physical challenges, and in terms of the learning that they gain from that. And indeed we reference within the narrative the outcomes not only from the participants themselves, but their families and the schools that report the gain that there is in terms of mutual support and trust that is gendered from that. In terms of housing services, we've referenced the prison project, which has been going for just about a year now. And in terms of actual numbers, whilst we're indicating that there's an improvement in terms of the percentage from sustaining tenancies for homeless offenders compared to the national average, because this is a project that is specific to Midlothian in terms of the prison protocol, getting in there before offenders are due to be released, and indeed at the earliest opportunity once they are imprisoned, so that we're either able to sustain tenancies, so there's a house for people to come out to, or make preparation for that if there isn't one, that they've had to give up their tenancy due to the length of the sentencing that they have received. And certainly from 17 offenders in the past year to Midlothian residents, 14 have successfully gone through this project. The other 3 declined to participate. In terms of housing strategies, been referenced by the Chief in terms of the co-production model that we adopted at Menial Terrace in terms of the environmental works. That's coming to a conclusion in terms of the landscaping currently taking place, but it has made a significant difference environmentally there, to the extent that neighbouring properties are inquiring when they in turn may benefit from that process. But certainly within those residents themselves who live there, because we did that in conjunction with them, it took us 2 years. But it was certainly one where they helped in the design and the choices that were made in terms of both properties and landscaping. So certainly has been a capacity building process for those people, because we've established a tenants group from that to sustain and maintain the improvements within their locality. In terms of challenges, inevitably revenues, there's continuing challenge in terms of income to the council, but we have a 1% improvement from where we were at this point last year, and we do have collections from DWP. About £80,000 needs to be posted to accounts yet, which we have received for Water Direct, so that will make a significant improvement in our income stream in the current year. Relative to community safety, as I say, the trend is against where we've been in target in the past 5 years. But we also got the current agenda from Scottish Government in terms of the disestablishment of community justice authorities, with reducing reoffending already being considered by the Council, and the remit of the Safer Communities Board has been extended to incorporate that from April of 2017, and we're currently in the planning process for that. And indeed, we had a well-attended and well-received workshop across the partnership of the across services of the Council, and also with our partners in terms of the Community Safety Partnership, and elected members were also well represented at that event. In terms of customer services review, we have previously reported the initial phase of profiling our customers across Midlothian, so that we understand how people access and why and where and how. We've moved that on in terms of the channel shift that is taking place, which is not just about putting everything online, as I've mentioned before, but also about our presence within communities, and the whole idea of the Mayfield Hub, to have that presence within the libraries, which are the fixed assets in our communities, how we continue to deliver services to communities, and that continues into the current phase with the restructuring of the staffing establishment behind that, and we're in formal consultation with staff and unions at the present time. And happy to pose for any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any of my colleagues, Bob?
Yes, it's just about the libraries here, Kevin. Pleased to see the summer reading challenge has been going well for all that. What's meant by pirate packs on the pirate packs distributed for the book gifting? Do you know anything about that?
That's relative to a theme, and indeed we had an improved uptake for the Summer Reading Challenge this year. They seem to have a better subject or topic because we'd consulted with the schools in order that we could link that into the curriculum, because we didn't have a particularly good uptake last year. But the Pirate Pack, I understand, is in relation to pirates, the theme itself, is really what that was about.
Jamie?
Just a couple of questions, Kevin. The 80,000 from DWP, what was that in respect of?
That's in relation to what's called Water Direct within the community charge. Council tax. Been doing this too long. Within the council tax charge, there's the water and sewerage element, which the council collects on behalf of Scottish Water. That's the case across all local authorities, and that's within the billing process. Albeit we can give rebates and the single person discount, some residents don't appreciate that the water and sewerage charge, whilst it's in the council tax bill, is payable to Scottish Water, and we act as the agent for that. So there are people who don't pay that element, and even if you are rebated, you still have the full charge of the water and sewerage costs. And DWP had introduced the process this year of Water Direct, where there's a direct deduction from people's benefits of that charge. Now that's been implemented from this financial year, and we had requested that source, and as I say, there's about £80,000 that we've received that's yet to be posted to accounts through the IT system.
And the second question, the Mayfield Hub, what's the great success of that? Could you expand that a wee bit?
Yeah, we've certainly had an uptake from local residents. It's been a bit of a slow burn because we wanted to make sure that we could operate as we'd anticipated with the links into council systems, which the staff there are able to do. We've based contact centre staff in the library, but they are working in conjunction with the library staff, who themselves are well established and credible and have a profile in the Mayfield community, and that's one of the reasons that we picked that library for the pilot itself. So to answer your question, people are able to access those services directly with the customer services staff who are present in the building, and also online in terms of giving them direct access. Whilst there are computers in all the libraries, it's knowing where to go to in terms of which services, and the staff are able to give the public that advice and indeed advocate for them where necessary. We've had the situation, just to give you an example, where we had a disabled resident. And because of his disability, he was frustrated in terms of making telephone contact with services because he wasn't that well understood, but didn't have the mobility to come into Dalkeith to access those services either. So we've been able to resolve benefits and social work concerns for that individual in the past 3 weeks, I think, that person presented to us, and get a resolution for them.
Thanks, Gavin.
Kelly.
Just a couple of points, really. The first one is just to say that it's really good to see the new houses being delivered on target at Eastfield Drive and Craigie Beelsey Grove. Another thing was more a question on page 57 in these papers. The DASS Family Support Service, the outcome figures there are brilliant. They're really excellent. 82% report that the child is living in a safer environment, and 86% report that the child, young person, is at reduced risk of harm as a result of parental and drug and alcohol use. I did note that the target was 10 and that 17 families are being worked with. Is that a case of being a victim of our own success, if you like?
Yes, in terms of equally the prevalence of the issues that are being presented with, and certainly we're quite well aware that there's an increased incidence in terms of drug and alcohol relative to antisocial behaviour and criminality, but yes is the short answer to Councillor Parry's question.
Yes, Kevin, just one question about the voids on page 60 of the paper. I see you've had asbestos in one property affecting the figures and the new buyers, but we're still 47 days. Well, we're obviously above our target of 35. We're still above the Scottish average. Any special reason for that?
Yes, in the past year, we've still got within this quarter the impact of new buyers, in addition to, as you've indicated, Councillor Constable, there's been the odd property which itself has presented difficulties of being void with the asbestos one, but the delays otherwise which accrue within voids have been attributable to new buyers because some of those properties have been left longer, the ones people are moving to, because we've been doing additional works over and above what we do on a standard relet. That will no longer be evident by Q4 because everybody has moved out of new buyers.
Thank you very much. And can we just move on now to 4B2, adult social care?
Thank you. In terms of the past quarter, clearly the health and social care integration agenda has been taking up significant time, and equally there has been progress in terms of the meeting itself relative to the board and its draft strategic plan, which had been agreed through council recently, outlining the range that the health and social care agenda will impact on across the council. In terms of substance misuse, relative to our earlier point, there's the prevalence of alcohol and drug misuse within Midlothian. In terms of addressing that, there's a substance misuse worker who has been employed to assist carers with family members who are affected. In terms of older people, we've had a sustainable older people strategy for some time, and equally in terms of that consultation with service users and those who should be benefiting. We have the Older People's Assembly, which meets each quarter, and there are co-design meetings which are held throughout the course of the year, being planned as a consequence of that, with the first of those which were held in October and will no doubt be reported to members in Q3. In terms of mental health, there is the new process and the way of working in terms of a dual diagnosis for, again, mental health and substance misuse. This is most prevalent in terms of NPS presentations, legal highs, as they're otherwise known. And indeed, I was at an SPA event yesterday with the police authority, and police there were reporting at least 50% of those who are charged relative to criminality are presenting with mental health issues. So that is an increasing concern for us collectively within the Safer Communities agenda. Within self-directed support, again, that has been a significant piece of legislation and practice that's had to be developed over the past year, and certainly, whilst it's still early days, we continue to embed that legislation into business as usual, as is reported here. Relative to challenges and risks, is in terms of the capacity and the quality of services, with the demands that there are on in-house and external services across both our existing care homes and the care at home services. And happy to pause for any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. I had one or two things just to say. I acknowledge that this in general is a demand-led budget, and sometimes it gets a bit skewed with seasonal demand, and I hope we can manage that really well. There was one other thing that I'm really pleased about. It's the we are going to be a test site for living well with cancer. We've got a lot of cancer in my family, and I was pleased that there's going to be ways to help people live successfully and continue with their lives really well, and make the big C now the wee C. The other thing is making better use of Midlothian Community Hospital as an outpatient and increasing the services available there for us, which will not only help our residents' health but also reduce our carbon footprint, which is very topical just now. And the other thing is developing our custom or our profile for reducing reoffending in Midlothian to make it not only safer for people who are not involved in that, but to make a better life for people coming out of prison. Anyone else like to have a question?
It's on page 80. The delayed discharges. This is one of the major things of the IGB we want to pretend. If anyone in over 72 hours, they tend to go downhill. Are these discharges, will they be our fault or more the NHS's fault? Do you know any information on that?
I do know that the delayed discharges are a complex situation which involve, as you've indicated, not just the NHS but ourselves. But certainly I can say from my perspective where anybody who's a delayed discharge who is a Midlothian Council tenant, we are working with our colleagues in terms of either aids and adaptations that are required or indeed relocations for people which may be required if they're in an upper flat and they're not in a position where they can return to that due to mobility or ambulant disabled, and we're looking to ground floor and level access properties. And indeed we keep a couple of properties aside for our social work colleagues for that specific purpose. Other than that, I know people are in a short term going to the community hospital or on occasion they're going into our care homes where respite is required in order to do, not only for the families but to make preparations for these aid and adaptations to be carried out into the property. But I do understand from colleagues that we are certainly at the forefront in terms of reducing the impact of delayed discharge in Midlothian. And we certainly have a good performance in that regard.
Thank you. And we can move on now to 4C1, Education, Communities and Economy, Children's Services.
Thank you, Chair. Overall, this is a very positive report from Children's Services. As we've outlined, it's the 14th consecutive month where our child protection rates remain low. I just want to alert elected members to the fact that if you remember at one point we were way above the national average at 10.2 and we're now below the national average and we're maintaining that. So all of the work that you see here is really about our prevention and early intervention work that's been going on, and that leads us into the Children's Services Review. You know that we've been doing the Family Resilience Project, and that's working with families in a different way, and the learning from that is about us providing a service where the families need it. So we're embarking on that review at the moment. That's underway with the hope that we're going to, or the anticipation that it will be implemented next year. Our looked after and accommodated as well remains steady. Again, that takes us into the early intervention and the work we're doing across the board. In terms of the challenges, you know that our children who go into secure accommodation cost us £250,000 per year. At the moment, we have 2 young people there. And again, it's to do with the needs of those young people. We have no choice in that. It's a needs-led budget. However, we try to manage that and get the youngsters out as soon as we possibly can. Again, you know, with the Children and Young Persons Bill, our residential units, it's about having young people in care until they're 21. So we need to look at how we configure our resources so that we can look after these young people. So again, just the demands of the new legislation, you know, it's an ongoing process. The implementation of the named person, we're working towards that. So we're on target. We're managing it. So in terms of elected members, just being aware that it does raise challenges for us. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Bob?
No real questions, just to say we are doing well with all this legislation the Scottish Government keeps throwing at us. And it's always good to see Midlothians above the others when I go around to Crossland these things.
Thank you. Now we can move on to item 2, communities and the economy.
Thank you, Chair. Again, a very succinct report. However, I just want to take you for a minute to pause. The opening of the Borders Rail, huge for Midlothian, huge implications for the economic benefits of that, and we're working to implement the Borders Rail blueprint. So that was one thing that we've achieved in this quarter. The City deal, again, another huge opportunity for Midlothian, and we're just awaiting the Chancellor's announcement at the end of November. So a lot of work has gone into that as well. Planning permission granted for the zero waste facility at Miller Hill. That is worth £500 million to us as we move forward. It was approved at planning and we kind of went, well, that's fine, tick, we've moved on. But it's a huge piece of work. So, you know, whilst this report is very succinct, it's really just to make you aware that there is a lot going on. And the emerging challenges are as set out below, but again, it's about how we're working to meet these. So deploying sufficient resources to implement the Child Poverty Action Plan. It's about closing the gap. So that's not just about economics, it's about education gap, it's about how we're working towards that. Achieving ambitious Midlothian, again, that we're looking at broadband, we're looking at skills, we're looking at place, we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at business and business gateway. We submit, in this one it says, submit a successful bid for Tyne Esk Leader funding. That was actually approved last week. So another huge thing that's been achieved. It's taken us 18 months to get there, but we've got there. So as you can see, we've laid out the emerging challenges, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary. I think you've covered all my questions, but if we maybe just run through them. The ambitious Midlothian, it's been going for about 3 years now, Mary, and you mentioned broadband. Could you just expand that just a wee tad?
So in terms of the ambitious Midlothian plan, as you say, it's been going for 3 years. It's due a refresh because of all the other things that are happening. So it's about how we work to implement broadband to all of our businesses, you know, across the board, you know, in terms of our new build housing. So all of that. In terms of skills, we're looking at skills development. Do we have the skills that are going to be required as we move forward? How are we working with the colleges to look at the skills development? In terms of the infrastructure, do our roads meet the needs, you know, the bush, you know, in terms of the science development? Have we got everything that we need there? That links to our bid in terms of, I've forgotten the name of it, the City deal. So all of this is all linking together. So the ambitious Midlothian plan probably needs to be refreshed in relation to everything else that's going on. But all of these things are there. So there is a blueprint for Borders Rail. There's a blueprint for the city deal. It's about how we just maximise these, that we know that we're all working in the same direction.
Thanks, Mary. And the city deal, you mentioned, we're waiting for the budget. I think we all know that. And the Tyne S-Leader funding, we got the okay for that the other day there. That's been, I think, 18 months that Economic Section has been working on that. So that's brilliant news. And what am I thinking about now? And the trading standards is merging with East Lothian, which is going to be?
We're going to set up a partnership with East Lothian in terms of trading standards. And there is a report that will go to both councils to seek approval for that, to seek formal governance for it. But at the moment, we have an arrangement whereby there's management provided by Mid Lothian to East Lothian in order to strengthen that service. So we're both Mid Lothian and East Lothian have small services. This is about giving a more robust service, and we're very happy with how that's moved forward.
Thanks again. If you could just tell the Economic Section that I'm absolutely delighted with the work they've put in and what the success they're having.
Derek.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mary. Yeah, you say there are a lot of positives in here, I think, what we're doing, and I think we've got to, you can't overemphasise the benefits that the Borders Rail, as you say, is, and I think we're now moving forward and we're seeing lots of ideas coming forward, how can we maximise the rail and get it out there into the other communities throughout Midlothian rather than just on the line, so to speak. The other thing is, I think, which is quite important, is the Midlothian's the town centres one. We're already beginning to see now the benefits of, Pennycook, the business improvement district thing, and I think we've really got to look to how we can use that in some of our other communities and other towns, because I think there's quite a lot of our towns in Midlothian could benefit from this. I'm thinking possibly Dalkeith, Newton Grange, that sort of thing. I think we've got to look at these areas and push forward, but I think there is a lot of positives in there that we're doing and we should learn from.
Thank you very much. Is that everything on that one? We can move now on to item 3, and that's education.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Again, a very positive report. And the theme of this report, as laid out by Grace, is closing the gap and the implementation of the National Improvement Framework as we move forward. What this report is telling us is there's lots of really good work going on in terms of our early years, in terms of our ambition to establish family learning centres in our 3 priority areas. That work's underway. In terms of early years and the implementation of the 600 hours, really we have a 97% uptake of the 3 and 4 year olds. The looked after twos is slightly more difficult, but we're doing that, or the entitled twos. Closing the gap in terms of the education theme, it's as laid out by the paper. There was a conference in October about closing the gap, very well attended, very well received. We really need to think differently in Midlothian. In terms of using the Insight tool, we have a new tool now, which tells us about our learners in Midlothian. It tells us about a school, so we have a virtual comparator, so we, instead of always saying that Newbattle would be at the bottom of the attainment, we can actually be looking at where Newbattle is in terms of a virtual comparator, both in the school, as a whole school, as in a class, as in a pupil. So using that Insight tool is going to give us benefits. It would tell us, is BSLAC still achieving what it should against its comparators? Should the youngsters be doing better? The SIMD 3 and 4, our youngsters, it tells us that we have a lot of working parents that are perhaps in poverty. So how can we work to close that gap? And interestingly, in SIMD 9, decile 9, our youngsters are not doing as well as they could. So should we be kicking them up the bum and saying, you need to be doing better, you can achieve much more? So it's about how we use that information to improve outcomes for our children and close the gap. And the other main thing that we want to do is close the gap on children going from nursery into primary. We've often said here that we have really good inspection reports at nursery level, and then we'll have that gap when they come to school, so in P1. So we're looking at closing that vocabulary gap. So if we can do a lot of work there. So that's what it means by the tariff scores and things like that in the report. In terms of the challenges, we've got the double lock of teacher numbers and ratios, but we have achieved that by a lot of hard work by not just the education staff, but also our HR staff and you know, wages and salaries and, you know, getting everything together. So it's been a huge piece of work by everybody. Improving positive destinations remains a priority for us. And just when we think we've cracked it, they then change the measurement. Even with the measurement, it's about youngsters at the moment up to 19 who perhaps went to college and have dropped out of college, or the youngsters who perhaps chose the wrong course. So it's about how we work together to make sure that these youngsters don't drop out together. And again, the implementation of the named person, although it's not due till August next year, we're working towards that, and the preparation of the education bill. So there's elements to that. So there's a lot going on. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Bob.
Yes, it's just when you talking about our virtual comparator for each of the schools, of course the selection of that is very important. You could make all the difference to the figures if you get the right virtual comparator. Why do we, you referred to the tariff points, now this I'm not really might follow that. The Insight local benchmarking data, why does that give us these red points in that? On page 125 on the report. Or 15 in the actual thing, but 125 in the agenda.
Information from the Insight local benchmarking shows a fall of 15 tariff points. So that's in terms of the qualifications the youngsters get. Each of them has a tariff point. So you're saying a virtual comparator, you can choose whichever one and you'll get a different answer. This is a virtual comparator based on our SIMD information. So it's not based on us looking at East Lothian or West Lothian or West Dumbarton. It's actually based on our SIMD comparators. So that's where it is. So previously our best was 127 points, and we're showing 112 at the moment. So we need to improve that. That's what we're talking about, closing the gap.
Thank you. Any more questions on that one? We can now move on to D and resources, and the first one is commercial operations.
Thanks. Chair, given earlier comments by the Chief Exec, fellow directors, Kevin and councillors, I'll probably just do the three parts of the directorate in a winner, because going last there's been a lot of things I was going to raise being adequately covered. Normally when I do this quarterly presentation I indicate we've got a lot of work in progress, and as we've heard from earlier papers, there's actually been a lot of things complete. Planning for zero waste, I've had the privilege of chairing the Zero Waste Board for Edinburgh and Midlothian, as Mary and Kenneth have indicated. Planning permission is generational stuff. Borders Rail, everybody's wanting a bit of the train set and the good news, but it was a privilege to oversee with my colleagues the opening event and put Midlothian on the world map. I think that was a great day in everybody's career. We also need to be aware of financial stewardship going forward. Q2 financial report was showing an overspend, so we need to be aware of that. Purchase to pay has been rolling out across the whole of the council sector and introducing efficiencies into ways we purchase and pay for goods. Effective working in Midlothian after a long gestation period is actually happening. Our staff relocating into Midlothian House as we speak. Staff who have moved from outlying buildings from both Lonehead and Bonnyrigg into town centre have embraced working in the new way of working, and early signs are encouraging. As we've heard from members earlier, town centre regenerations are important, and we're progressing the Dalkeith town centre consultation. And as we've already also heard from colleagues, we continue with our ambitious house programme. These examples are all in addition to everything that we as a Directorate do to serve people who visit, live and work in Midlothian on a daily basis. In each of the three Heads of Service report, we've listed some challenges. It's not my intention to dwell on the detail of them. We know what they are. What I would rather do is just focus on the big challenges facing the Directorate and probably the Director. We're required to maintain financial rigour. It's pretty clear. Pressures in Mary's area, Evelyn's area, are a concern of mine because we need to work together to maintain financial rigour. If we've got £250,000 kids, that means something else needs to stop. We also need to work with partners, both at a small scale and a large scale. The recent corporate parent and champion day at Mayfield was a fantastic event on a small scale that put Midlothian on the map. But also on a national and international scale, we're becoming the partner of choice. From the Borders Rail experience, Transport Scotland, the Royal Household, they preferred working with Midlothian Council compared to two neighbouring authorities that I won't mention. So we want to be seen as continue the partner of choice. There's also a challenge short-term maintaining services while we relocate staff. We've got to maintain, and we are maintaining services to the customers. And we're also in the process of finalising our winter festive contingency plan to continue to provide services during the forthcoming festive period. And that's all against the backdrop of significant financial austerity, working, delivering excellence, moving forward. But let's not be under any illusion. The stuff coming out from Directors of Finance, from Government, is pretty challenging, and there will be some really tough decisions that have to be taken going forward. So let's enjoy some of the successes, but I think going forward it's going to be fairly challenging for the Council, officers and all our partners and colleagues. I'll pause there, Chair.
Thank you very much. Derek?
Thanks. Thanks, John. Yeah, as you say, there's a lot of good things that just show you what is happening in Midlothian just now. And I mean, the amount of things that are happening it's a lot of work and a lot of challenging, as you say, things that have to be addressed. I think the point maybe I made to it is that I think we can't underestimate the 500,000 we got for the waste, you know, and that's going to help some small way in the budget and things like that. But that was a good piece of work, I think, and I think the officers concerned in that. I think it was deserve a bit of praise and congratulations for that. So that was welcome. The other bits and pieces, just a sort of question, really, John, as to where we are, and it probably is one of the smaller things. I can appreciate that, but in view of the problems it caused us, the things going on with Network Rail just now on the Tynehead Road, trying to get money out of them. Do you know where? I know it just says they're waiting in a response. Anything on that?
I said earlier that we prefer to be the partner of choice, so taking that good news, I've wrote to Network Rail formally last week seeking an update on where we are with the funding. If I don't get a response in the next week or so, I'm going to elevate it and potentially go through the good offices of the Chief Exec. So we're fully aware of what we're looking for, and we're in discussions with them, so I'm just keeping on top of it.
Thanks for that. Just a couple of quickies since you're on it. I think they're quite important. And it's really going to the property and facilities management one now. You're taking them right through well, page 157. On that, there was just a couple of things I think that actually came out in the details of the report. One of them was the slight decrease in the meals take-up. But I believe is that probably due to sort of shops opening, supermarkets round about, maybe children going elsewhere, would you know? It seems to be a wee bit of a drop, but that's probably because we've set a high standard anyway.
If I recollect back, we were the highest mainland authority in Scotland, but some of the local developments, you think of the small-scale shopping development at Lastmead High School, people are going to go elsewhere, and some of the local businesses are quite creative in encouraging particularly high school kids, to come in at lunchtime, understand there's meal deals all over the place.
That's fair. Just the other thing in the report is on the sort of slight decrease in the use of pools, the swimming pools. And that, would you see that the what would you, the thing that we passed at the last council as regards giving the hour free lessons during the school holidays, would that maybe help towards addressing that?
Yeah, the last council decision will help a bit. I'm also picking up, speaking with leisure staff, there's also a bit of a social issue about going in the pool if you're overweight. People tend not to do it the way they used to do years ago, so there's a wee bit of embarrassment. We'll keep promoting and keep encouraging folk to come and be fit, not just swimming everywhere, because one of the big things we're charged with, I've been really pleased with, is keeping people fit prevents problems in health going down the line, and we've seen the over 50s active walking football team, things like that. So we just keep chipping away at it to encourage people to keep fit.
That's fine, John. You are aware that the councils have been asked to put a team into the walking football team, as have the staff, so I don't know if
I was aware of a conversation at the recent sports events. I didn't realise it had developed that far, but I wish the council's team good luck against the staff team.
Thank you very much. Kelly.
Thanks. I'm actually really disappointed to learn that you have to be over 50 to join the walking football. But anyway, a few years to go yet. Just wanted to pick up on some of the really positive points. I'm overall aware of how much a challenge the next few years are going to be, and how much they have been. But there are some really good things in here. The housing going ahead is brilliant. Particularly pleased to see the Edgefield Road site starting now, so I can prove to my Labour colleagues that it does actually exist, despite their election leaflets. And the other thing, which is down as a challenge, is the living wage accreditation. But I just wanted to say how brilliant that is, that we have reached that point and can now go forward in accreditation. So it's a challenge, but it's also a really good opportunity to be a really good example to other councils and other businesses within Midlothian as well. So that's really positive. And the last point, I know it's been made a lot, but was just to say about the Borders Rail and the actual event on the day as well. I know that John, I know that all officers put in a lot of work, but John, I know that your team and yourself particularly put in a lot of hard graft in it. I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thanks and to pass that back down to your team as well.
Thank you very much. Bob?
Yes, I was going to raise Derek's point about the uptake in the school meals, because I've boasted at COSLA about that figure, that we have the highest uptake in Scotland of that. And just to note that this afternoon in the planning, there's an application for a hot food outlet near Lastweed High School.
Thank you very much. That was our last item. Thank you very much for attending, and do have a very successful day.